without the other. Indeed, there have been many authoritarian right-wing regimes that have had market economies, Pinochet's Chile, for example, and survived for a long time without political freedom. So I don't think the one automatically leads to the other, but I think that there's something in the idea that once people act autonomously in one area of their life, they can gradually come to demand more autonomy in other areas of their life. But the Chinese authorities have been quite effective so far. Some people have said in the age of the internet, how can you avoid democracy? Well, of course, the Chinese have censored the internet. The parts that are harmless or economically useful, they allow, but if you try tapping in democracy, well, nothing will come up. So they've done this quite effectively. That, incidentally, is a respect in which Russia today is not as authoritarian as China, and Russia has not tried to censor the internet. How long it will take, who knows? But I do think that China will gradually democratize, but the social structure of China is what it is, and what I mentioned, 2/3 of the population are peasants. I think it's not just economy. I think it's changing social structure. A larger middle class matters, a more educated population, and the average number of years of education in China just now is just something like 5 years. So in another 20 years, there'll be far more people who've had a full secondary education, far more with higher education. So maybe in 20, 30 years, it'll be a very big difference. Now, of course, in 1984, if you'd asked me how long will it take for the Soviet Union to change fundamentally, again, I might have said 20 or 30 years, but it was shorter time than that.
Thank you very much. We're nearing the end of our meeting today. We have one last question in the back, and after that, I think we'll wrap up.
Sorry. Good morning, Professor. You began by reminding us that communism is still alive, if not alive and kicking, in 5 countries, even if they are a funny lot, as you pointed out. Can you picture, in the future, communism winning new territory somewhere around the world, or is it done for?
I don't think that communism has a future. I've got 6 defining characteristics of a communist system. I've got a chapter, what do we mean by a communist system, in my book. And they are too political, the monopoly of power of the Communist Party, democratic centralism within the party. Too economic, command economy, not a market economy, state ownership of the means of production, not private ownership. Too ideological, the aspiration to build communism, this utopia in the future, this classless society in which the state would have withered away, and a sense of belonging to an international communist movement. Well, there isn't an international communist movement to belong to anymore. Even in China, they don't think about building communism. Deng Xiaoping said it will take us many generations to build socialism. So this implied hundreds of years. So communism, well, he didn't even talk about it. And nobody's thinking of building socialism in the old sense in China, never mind communism. So both the ideological and the economic attributes of communism have been largely rejected. North Korea is the big exception, Cuba to a lesser extent. I think Cuba will change quite radically too. I think the United States pursued an incredibly stupid policy vis-a-vis Cuba, and it will do nothing to help Castro. So in fact, Castro became the David defying the Goliath of the United States, and 50 years on, 2 Castros are still there, and Cuba is still communist. Now, Obama has got a much more sensible policy, and more interaction with Cuba will lead to a liberalization in Cuba, I'm sure. I don't think they should copy the United States in all respects. Cuba has got the same infant mortality rate as this vastly richer country, the United States. It's got the same life expectancy as the United States on average, and it's a very poor country, so the Cuban health service is not as bad as all that. But that's another point. But I think that, no, communism has failed. In theory it's failed, as an ideology it's failed, and in political practice it's failed. China has done quite well economically, but it's done so by abandoning the economic characteristics of a communist system. So I don't see any where communism has succeeded, so equally I don't see any reason why it should come back.
Thank you very much. Now that we have started talking about the future, maybe you could just reveal what you're working on now, the title of your next book. What are the big questions that we don't know about the history of communism that should be asked and answered?
That's a difficult question. I've been trying to make up my mind whether the next book will be a book on the end of the Cold War, or a book, and this is the one I think I'll do, a comparative historical study of political leadership. But I've spent quite a lot of time this year talking about the rise and fall of communism, so I'm not really on to the next book yet.
Professor Archie Brown, thank you very much.